Ever type something into a search bar and it feels like you're waiting like forever for each letter to show up?
Oh,
It's
yeah.
like the internet's stuck in slow motion.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Well, that lag, a lot of times, it's because of a ton of API requests happening all at once. And today, we're doing a deep dive into how to make those requests, crazy efficient.
Really streamline things.
Exactly. We're going to dissect this awesome article by Janeth Panalis called Stop Wasting Time, the ultimate guide to efficient API calls with Redux Saga and Axios.
Catchy title.
Right. So think of this article like our roadmap to building those super responsive web applications that, everyone loves.
Snappy.
Yes. And Panalis starts off with a scenario that I think a lot of developers can relate to: user input fields. Those could be like a trigger point for a cascade of API requests.
Oh, for sure. Like if you got a search bar, every single keystroke could be firing off a new request if you're not careful.
And that just overwhelms the server, right?
Absolutely. It's like a DDoS attack, but self-inflicted.
And that's where our dynamic duo comes in: Redux Saga and Axios.
The dream team.
Right. So Redux Saga, it's like that maestro, elegantly conducting all those asynchronous requests happening in the background.
Making sure everything's in sync.
Yeah. And Axios, that's
Yeah.
our reliable messenger, swiftly delivering those requests.
It's like having a dedicated carrier pigeon that always knows the fastest route.
Exactly. But it's not enough to just send those requests willy-nilly. We got to make sure we're only working with the most up-to-date information.
Fresh data is key.
For sure. And that, my friend, is where Redux Saga's takeLatest effect comes into play. Imagine takeLatest is like that super organized friend who comes in and says, hold up, we only need the absolute latest request. Everyone else, stand down.
It's like when you order a pizza and then you keep calling back to change the toppings.
Oh, yeah, just let the pizzeria do their thing.
Exactly. takeLatest brings that same piece to our code, prioritizes the most recent user action, so we're not wasting bandwidth on, old news.
Right. No more outdated requests clogging up the system. And that means less strain on the servers and a smoother experience for the user.
Win-win. And Ponal actually gives us a little code snippet to illustrate this. He's got one for API.js, which basically sets up Axios with this built-in cancellation feature.
Like a magic cancel button.
Precisely. Although in a real-world application, you'd also want to incorporate debouncing.
Debouncing. That's like adding a tiny pause.
Right.
So instead of firing off a request with every single keystroke, it waits until the user has kind of finished typing.
Exactly. It's like giving your server a moment to breathe.
Smart.
Right.
But let's not forget about appearRequestSaga.js, which Panala also talks about.
This is where it gets really interesting. Think of appearRequestSaga.js as the control center for all our API requests. It uses this try-catch block to manage the whole cancellation process gracefully.
Okay, so for those of us who aren't fluent in JavaScript, what exactly does a try-catch block do?
Imagine it like a safety net for your code. If something unexpected happens, like the network goes down or a request gets canceled, the catch block swoops in and handles it without crashing the entire application.
Got it. So no need to panic every time there's a hiccup?
Exactly. And then there's also the finally block that Punilai mentions. It's like the cleanup crew, make sure everything is tidy no matter what went down before.
I like that, the cleanup crew. But why is the finally block so important in this context?
Well, it ensures that certain actions are performed, whether the request was successful or not, just to tie up any loose ends. In this case, it's often used to cancel any ongoing requests and prevent resource leaks.
So it's about being efficient, even when things go wrong.
Exactly. And the best part is Ponala connects this whole technical concept back to a real-life situation, which I think is super helpful.
Oh, I love it when they do that. Makes it much easier to grasp. What's the analogy?
All right, so say you're meeting a friend and they call you up and they're like, hey, actually meet me at this other place instead. You wouldn't just keep walking to the original location, would you?
No way. That's just adding unnecessary steps to my day.
Exactly. You'd reroute and go directly to the new location. And that's precisely what takeLatest helps our code do. It's like it's learning to be more adaptable, changing course based on the most up-to-date information.
So we're not just blindly following outdated instructions. We're making smarter decisions about where to direct our resources.
I love that. But isn't this whole idea of canceling outdated requests, it's got to be relevant beyond just like search bars, right?
Oh, absolutely. Think about any application where you've got real-time data being displayed, stock prices, news feeds, online gaming leaderboards. In those situations, outdated information isn't just inconvenient, it can be like really misleading.
Like making a stock trade based on yesterday's closing price. Exactly, you'd be losing money left and right. But by implementing these efficient API request strategies, we're basically equipping our applications to keep pace with that constant need for real-time information.
It's like giving our code a shot of espresso. But with all this talk about like code and efficiency, it's easy to get lost in the technical weeds. What I appreciate about Panala's approach is that he's focusing on tools and libraries that are widely used and well supported, like Redux Saga and Axios.
Right. It's not about reinventing the wheel. It's about using what works, what's reliable. And that means as developers, we can spend less time, debugging and more time actually building cool stuff.
Exactly. And speaking of cool stuff, Panala actually provides a live demo on Stack Blitz for those of us who are more visual learners. And I have to say, it is really awesome to see these concepts in action.
Oh, for sure. You can actually play around with the code, experiment, see what happens when you tweak things. It's like having a virtual sandbox where you can't really break anything.
I love a good sandbox. But, Panala doesn't just leave us with code. He also asks us to think about a really interesting question, one that goes beyond just web development.
He asks, what are some other real-world scenarios where canceling outdated requests could be beneficial?
Such a good question.
Right. It really challenges us to think outside the box. Like, imagine applying this concept to traffic management in a smart city, optimizing delivery routes in real time, or coordinating emergency response efforts. The possibilities are endless.
It's amazing to consider how these technical concepts can have a real-world impact. It's like we're not just building applications, we're shaping the way we interact with the world around us.
Absolutely. And it all starts with understanding the fundamentals, which is exactly what Ponola helps us do in this article.
Couldn't agree more.
It really drives home the point that it's not just about the code. It's like, thinking about efficiency in a broader sense.
Absolutely. It's about find those elegant solutions that just make everything run smoother.
Precisely. And that brings us back to, the importance of mastering these techniques as developers, because especially as we're building the applications of the future, understanding how to handle API requests efficiently, that's not just about writing cleaner code, it's about creating a better experience for everyone.
Oh, for sure. A faster, smoother, more sustainable digital world, right?
Exactly. Plus, let's be real, who doesn't love a website that loads instantly?
It's the best. It's like the digital equivalent of a warm welcome.
Right. So, to kind of wrap up our deep dive into efficient API requests, I have to say this article by Jainath Panala, it's a must-read.
Definitely agree with you there.
It's such a clear example of how just a few key concepts like Redux Saga, Axios, and that takeLatest effect, they can make a huge difference when you're building responsive and efficient applications.
And we'll be sure to include a link to the article and that awesome live demo on Stack Blitz in the show notes. So definitely check those out if you want to really dive in and get your hands dirty.
Hands-on experience is the best.
Always. It really highlights how efficiency, it's not just about lines of code,
It's bigger than that.
It's about those smart choices, making the most of what we've got.
Exactly. And that brings us back to why these techniques are so important for developers, especially now as we're building the applications of tomorrow, understanding how to handle those API requests efficiently. Well, it's not just about writing cleaner code, it's about making a better experience for everyone.
Oh, absolutely. A faster, smoother, more sustainable digital world.
Exactly. Plus, come on, who doesn't love a website that loads instantly?
The absolute best.
Right. Okay, so to wrap up our deep dive into efficient API requests, I gotta say, this article by Jainath Panala, it's a must-read.
Definitely agree. It's a game changer.
It really is. It shows just how much of a difference a few key concepts can make, like using Redux Saga, Axios, that takeLatest effect we talked about. Those can really level up your application in terms of responsiveness and efficiency.
And for our listeners, we'll be sure to include a link to the article and that really cool live demo on Stack Blitz in the show notes.
Yes, definitely check those out.
It's a great way to get hands-on and, see these concepts in action.
And you can experiment a bit too, really get a feel for how everything works.
Absolutely. Yeah. So go forth, experiment, build something extraordinary. The tools are out there.
Happy coding, everyone.